everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is George, the Gaming Mechanic, and today we have my first video project, this Game Gear. It turns on and boots up, but the screen doesn't work completely, and the speaker doesn't work at all. So today we're going to open it up, replace all the capacitors, and we'll inspect for any other issues. So with that, let's get started. To complete this repair, we need a capacitor kit. I picked this one up from Console 5, some desoldering wick, flux, either paste or no clean, which I use in the video, side cutters, a soldering iron, a game bit screwdriver, and a PO1 Phillips head screwdriver. This video is going to just be me doing the repair, but I will stop to call out some tips and tricks for anyone who's maybe doing this for the first time. Otherwise, please enjoy. You'll want to be careful when you're opening the console up because you've got wires that connect from the back of the console to the front of the console on the soundboard and the power board. When you're taking the screws off of the motherboard, leave the four that are holding the reflector for the backlight. They just hold the screen onto the motherboard so it doesn't flop around like it does when I take it out. This motherboard looks in pretty good condition, so we're probably not going to have to do anything except replace the caps and clean it up a little bit. The capacitors on the motherboard can be removed by tilting them up and just wiggling them back and forth until the legs break off, but that can cause strain on the board and I don't like doing it, so I clip them off with some side cutters like this. You want to clean up any areas where the capacitors were to make sure you don't have any of the acid left. I like to keep my soldering iron at about 320 when I'm removing all this stuff, just to get the legs that are now left behind since we clipped it off. Add some flux, add a little bit of solder, makes it melt a little bit better and easier to get those off. Clip yourself a piece of desoldering wick, and I like to add a little bit of flux to help the old solder flow better into the wick. Don't forget to clean the flux off the board in between steps. So here I'm going to show you how I like to bend the legs. I pre-bend them so that they kind of fit on the board the way the original ones did. So I'll bend them right here at the body, the base of the capacitor. And then I'll bend them one more time to make them parallel to the cap, to give it little legs that we're going to solder back onto those pads. Doing it like this, you can bend them out to make them a little bit wider. If the pad you're soldering on is a little wider, you can tighten them up. Just depends on where you're putting it. Now we're going to take our pre-bent capacitor, and it's going to sit right here. As you can see, the legs are way too long, so we got to trim them. This one was a little too narrow. Just bend the legs out a little bit. Perfect. And the way I solder these in, I'll add some solder to one of the pads, and we'll solder that side of the capacitor on first. Now these caps normally are marked with a stripe on the negative side, and the board is marked with the positive side. So you just have to get the stripe on the side that's not marked as positive. I like to give them a little wiggle once I'm done soldering, just to make sure they're nice and snug on the board. So, with our motherboard complete, we're going to move on to the power board. Onto our power board, we've got this black cover that's covering two of the battery terminals. I'm just going to pull it off with a spudger. It's just got some adhesive on the bottom of it. Put it off to the side, then we can get to the screws. So we've got our power board out. This has through-hole capacitors in it, so the legs just come through the board and they're soldered on the opposite side. The power switch is also a little cruddy, so we're going to take that off and clean it out too. Now you can use a soldering iron and desoldering wick to take all the solder off of these legs, but I'm just going to use a desoldering gun to make this a little bit faster for the purpose of the video. But it is possible, and I have recapped an entire TV using just desoldering wick and a soldering iron. So for these through-hole capacitors, the white side is the negative side and the positive side is marked with a plus. So you can see that we've got negative, positive, and on the capacitor, once again, negative side striped. Normally negative is the shorter leg. I just used a piece of Kapton tape to hold down the power switch so it didn't fall out while I was trying to solder it in from the other side. Now it's time to take our soundboard out. It's covered up by this shield right here. Now this soundboard is by far the worst condition in this console in particular. I'm a little worried about it, but we'll press on. For the soundboard, we're going to use our side cutters and cut the tops of the capacitors off because most of it is soldered underneath the cap and it's very difficult to heat it all up to get it off. You want to make sure to snip these parallel to the solder points on the board because if not, you could tear the traces off. Once you cut the tops off, just kind of peel off what remains of the metal part. And what you've got left is these plastic bases. I normally have to crack them in half and they just fall right off. This right here. This is the moment when I thought, ooh no, this board might not work out. As you can see, the leg from that cap just fell off the board. And there looks like there's a lot of corrosion under the silk screening on the circuit board. But we're going to try and replace all the caps anyway, just so you guys can see how it's done. Once again, you want to take all the solder off of the pads, especially on this style because you do want the cap to be sitting completely flat when you set it down. So, similar to the other ones on the main board, I'm gonna add solder to one side of the cap and kind of melt the cap onto that side. So you can see caps are marked black on the negative side, with a little marking. That's the side you want to line up with the negative on the board. This board is very tight with the connectors and the headphone jack, so I decided I was just going to take those two white connectors off of the board to give myself room to put the new caps in. Now once you've got it stuck down on the one side, to do the other side, I normally pre-tin my soldering iron with a little bit of fresh solder and press it up against the second leg until I can see it disappear under the cap, because that's where most of the solder is going to be, is underneath these caps. Have it, power board, soundboard, recapped. So now, to clean this, we gotta get this speaker out of here because obviously we don't want that submerged in water. It's held in with this little bracket that's kind of melted to the front half. You can just use some side cutters to clip it and it just pop it right off. We're just going to clean some of that finger dust off of our speaker. It goes through the speaker grill. I'm just using the same IPA I use to clean the circuit boards. So So now we've got to get all the battery terminals out. It helps to use two tools, one to press down the tab that holds it in and another one to press the terminal out. The last four are soldered to each other with wires. And the only way to get them out is to desolder the wires from the tabs. So cut off the insulation, desoldered the wires. It helps to take a picture before you do any of this because you are going to have to put this back together, and I can't remember something for that long. So I always recommend just take pictures, that way you know where everything goes once you need to put it back together. Now it's time to take everything to the sink and wash it all up. So everything's clean, dry, and we're ready for reassembly. So to reinstall the speaker, this bracket has a small ridge that faces down towards the speaker, and then we're just going to use some hot glue on those 3 posts. I use hot glue. I don't put a lot just because I want to be able to peel this off if I ever take it apart again. If the speaker goes bad, I don't want it to be a huge pain in the butt to get out. You want to make sure when you screw down this motherboard that you don't pinch the speaker wire between the post and the board. So here's our moment of truth, and turns on. Just need to adjust the brightness a little bit so I can catch this on camera. Much better. But you'll notice there's no sound. All the way up, all the way down. I'm pretty sure this soundboard is way beyond repair. No sound. I took it back apart a couple times, bridged a couple traces on the board that seemed like they were pretty corroded, but I just could not get sound out of this soundboard. So, there's a solution for that. This. It's just an aftermarket soundboard. Picked one of these up, got it in a couple days, and we're just going to swap it out. There you have it, my newly refurbished Game Gear. I had a lot of fun doing this repair. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike. Did I inspire you to go get a Game Gear for yourself? Do you already have one that's broken that you might want to do this repair to? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite games for the Game Gear are. See you in the next video. Bye.